I've only preached one verse out of the chapter. We're going to preach the whole chapter. Tell me when you're ready to start, babe.
It started.
Pardon?
Go ahead.
You're okay? We're on. Okay. I did this on, I don't know what day it was. It could have been on Thursday. What do I preach? And then what should be said? What does the congregation need? So now I know that there are churches that do this. There are preachers that do that. They get up in front of the congregation, they go like that, and they point, and they preach out of that. Do you believe there's people that do that? I've heard that. I've heard that. I don't know how far you go with that, but there are people that do that. Now I opened up my Bible and I said, well, wow, should I do that or not? Isaiah. We normally don't go to Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 1. It opened right up to there. Today, I'm going to call it the vision. Now, while you're opening up there, as you're there, in Isaiah chapter 1, if you count the verse 1 as a paragraph marking, how many paragraph markings are there? So we can come up with a number of points. So go ahead and count them up. Give us some exercise here. Count them up just for the fun of it. What is that? Is that next door? That's in the street. Pardon? Yeah, that is a wow. Oh, you think it's a semi maybe going by? Just a truck. Everybody got them counted up? 7. So how many points are there? But I don't have 7, I have 8. But 7's a good number. And we are going to use those divisions, all right? We will use those divisions. We'll begin at chapter 1, verse 1, the vision, and I've entitled it Vision. Now, obviously, if he's got some kind of a vision, now how does the vision come? But the vision is revealed, isn't it? So it's not like we had to have this vision. Since he's got the vision, can't we use it and say that we can preach the vision, right? Since it's been revealed, the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amoz, which he saw, if we just read verse 1, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Now, during the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, what would that show about how long he served? And this is the vision during those days. How long did he in Jerusalem and Judah? If you were to guess, I mean, a year, 6 months, pardon? A long time. 16. And I'm pretty sure it's over. I think it's 70 years. It's a long time. It's like saying, now we don't have kings here. We have rulers that rule for how long here?
No more than 10 years.
No more than 10 years?
That's the statute of limitation.
Oh, it is. In other words, if he was like Lyndon Johnson, who was 3 years. Was he 3 years or 2 years? Well, the president was assassinated.
For 2 years, you could serve 2 more full terms.
Yeah, right, exactly. So the president, when was he assassinated? Was it 63?
Yep.
So he was president for a year and a half, and then he did run against Goldwater. You're right, thank you. He ran against Goldwater. Then what did Johnson decide to do? I was trying to figure this out the other day. Yeah, but he had a belly full. He had enough. What would have been the main reason he had a belly full? Vietnam. And what was the VP? Minnesota. Humphrey. We were saying Mondale. And, but Mondale is the one that was the dove that ran against Nixon. And so it's Humphrey, Hubert Humphrey ran against, who did he run against? No, he didn't. No, he was done. He was from Arizona, the Jew from Arizona, and his thumb was on the button. He ran against, in 64, that would have been 68, he ran against Nixon. Okay, so it's 10 years. Now, if you, the reason I'm bringing that up, it has nothing to do with anything other than you had Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. There's 4. So if it's a 10-year term, which you can't really do these 10 years back to back in this case, you could try to figure that out. But the most would be 40 years. But I'm pretty sure Isaiah prophesies for a long time. He's not in there for a month. He's in there for a good long time. Now the prophecy, the vision, is against Judah and Jerusalem. So if we are going to preach that, what would we preach the prophecy is against here? If you were to, you're the preacher, you're going to say, who's the prophecy against? The church? Well, you know what? That's the ones that was given the oracles to. I would say the nation, Judah and Jerusalem. The nation. So we could say it's against the United States. I mean, you could apply it to the United States. We're going to preach against the United States. Or you could say we're going to preach against the church. The vision is against the church as a whole, the true church. And then, or if you want to get microscopic on it, it would be preached against who? If we go from the nation to the church, make a smaller unit. To the individual. Okay? So we could preach it many different ways. Now the idea here is to apply it to our life. You want to apply this to you personally. Now we can apply it to the nation, that the whole nation has just gone crazy. We could say the church the light is dimming in the church. Or we can apply it to your own personal life. If we apply it, if we say Judah and Jerusalem and apply it to the church, then we could point the finger at the other guy. And we could say, doesn't apply to us, but yeah, keep preaching at him, okay? We could do that. And go home and be edified, but we want results. You want results in your life. And so what it's always good is to apply this to you personally so that the Lord can do something with your heart and my heart in correcting us and in bringing and restoration in our life. And I know that some of you I can see you're tired. You are tired. We can only go for 39 more minutes. 39 more minutes. We have 8 points. There's probably more than this. I did preach, if in chapter 1, what verse would you preach in chapter 1? If you just take your finger and scroll down through there. Really? That's a good verse. I've never preached that. I've used the verse. I've used it in preaching, but I never preached that verse. There's a famous verse in there. You're right, it's 18. It's verse 18. Maybe I'll try to remember to bring this up at verse 18. I did preach on that. And we had some thunderous things happen that day. Anybody remember me preaching Isaiah 1:18? You have no marking here because you weren't here. This building wasn't here. We were up there. Anybody remember that day I preached on it? Somebody got saved in the church that day. There was weeping and wailing at the altar. Weeping and wailing. Anybody remember that? Nobody remembers that. Yeah, it was, and I never found out what the problem was. And was never really corrected. But that day, it was an individual got saved that day. Anyway, let's go verses 1 through verse 4. We have I words here. All of them start with the letter I. This evening, I think it fits very well. It will be something that we can apply to our hearts here tonight. By the way, buddy, Mary, I did hear that. I mean, they have a gurgle here. It definitely is there. And that's what turns into, it could turn into walking pneumonia. I don't think they're going to get that. But walking pneumonia, I mean, that can really affect them. The vision of Isaiah, and we need to pray for Ben. He has got this allergy or something wrong with him. Really, really wrong with him. And starless stomach. And Amy had a problem. She was in the hospital yesterday. So we need to pray for these individuals if you think of them. And pray about them. I do pray about them, but as a whole, we should think about those. I mean, they're really having some ongoing issues. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for the Lord hath spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knoweth the owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. Ah, sinful nation. Oh, well, there it is. It's called a nation. They're not necessarily the church or the temple. A sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backward. All right, so what is our first I word, if you were to guess it in those first 4 verses? Yes, you're right, the iniquity. All right, so the iniquity is another word of saying transgression, or another word for saying sin. We must all admit here, we are all sinners. And if we use Sam Gipp as an illustration, he said, if you're walking this Christian life, in which direction are we supposed to be going? Forward or backward? Forward. He said, even if you can only take baby steps, just keep going forward, even if it's little baby steps. But here they said they went backwards. We can go forward. We can go forward fast. We go forward slow. But we can also go and regress and go backwards. Here the entire nation had gone backwards. In the cycle of nations, our country is probably on the verge of the last or the second last sin before it goes back into, I believe, slavery. In the cycle of nations, I give you that list on the cycle of nations. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It's something that was developed, I think, in the 1700s by somebody that went from slavery, freedom, prosperity to if you could care less, what's that word? Complacency, that's one of them. Complacency back to, it ends back up at slavery. Slavery, and you get back, we're close to that. And the iniquity of our nation, now folks, not everybody's forsaken the Lord. We're not saying that. We're gonna see this chapter. When we think of Isaiah, we think of a lot of negative things. How many chapters are in Isaiah?
66.
How many chapters are in the Bible?
I think it's 66.
How many in the Old Testament?
39.
The first 39 chapters of Isaiah are supposed to be negative, indicating the negativeness of the Old Testament. But really, brothers and sisters, there's grace in the Old Testament. How many chapters then in the New Testament?
Chapters.
27.
Books.
Books. I'm sorry, you're right. Yeah, good. I'm wrong. 27 books. I was wrong about that other thing, and you found it for me this morning. 27 books. And so those are likened unto the last 27 chapters of Isaiah, and they are likened unto grace. And then it divides out that way. Now, you might have to say, well, we have to really stretch it a little to make it mean that. But when we preach a survey, Old Testament survey, we break it out that way. 66 books, 66 chapters, 39 chapters, 39 books, 27 chapters and 27 books. Between justice, divine justice, and divine grace, separating it out like this. So if we go with that attitude, then we are looking for negativeness in Isaiah chapter 1. But at the end, Isaiah chapter 1 really doesn't, after I read this, it's not really completely negative. It really isn't. We must first admit that there is iniquity in our lives. How are you doing on your Bible reading? How are you doing on your prayers? How are you doing on passing out tracts? How are you doing with getting along with employees? How are you doing getting along with partners? How are you doing getting along with the spouses? On and on and on the list goes. And so you can find out right where you stand in the Lord. The iniquity. And then when the iniquity comes, now I don't think that there is any other I word in the chapter that's going to fit in our thing. But that you're going to, iniquity was easy to find because and that's what came out to me. And I said, well, there might be a whole pile of these letters, but the others are not going to be that way. Now look at verses 5 through verse 8. Is what does this do when sin? What do we liken sin unto? Give me some things that sin is likened unto in the Bible. This iniquity is likened unto what?
Leaven.
Leaven. That's one. That's a good one. Any diseases? Leprosy. Does it? I mean, it is. That's bad. That's a bad thing to have. All right, now let's look. We are very familiar with these verses. We should be familiar with these verses. When we were at the Bible Believers, I mean, they'd bring these verses up all the time, and we'd hear them all the time. Maybe that's why I'm more familiar with them. Why should ye be stricken anymore? Ye will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint. From the sole of the foot even unto the head there is no soundness in it, but wounds, bruises, putrifying sores. I mean, this is a pretty ugly mess. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. Your country is desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land, strangers devour it in your presence, and is desolate as overthrown by strangers. And the daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. And so our next I word is because of sin, it's the infection. It has infected the whole body, the whole of you, the whole of you. The baby was over today, and she was sleeping in Starla's arms. She fell asleep a few times, but one was a short nap, and then Starla, for some reason, had to wake her up. We had to move her. What was the first thing the baby did? Do? Go ahead, say it out loud. Yeah, she cried. I mean, and she never cries. She cries. When you get up from your nap or whenever, and you get up cranky, and I mean, who wants to be around you? Right? It's like you've been infected. And so it's like, whatever you do, don't go around him. Right? This iniquity that has overcome you has infected you from the sole of your foot to the crown of your head with putrifying sores. There's an infection. It has permeated through the entire, if we liken this unto the nation, the big group, it is permeated through the entire country. And you may call this culture. The culture, by the way, has the culture changed? The culture has changed. I mean, folks, it's not Leave It to Beaver anymore. The culture has changed. And things have changed. It has infected every aspect of life. Every aspect of life. The infection has taken over. Has it infected you? Has it infected you? Don't be afraid to say yes or no. Okay, one brother says it has infected him. Anybody here say it has not infected them? Has it infected? I gotta have somebody say it has not infected you. Somebody say no. Somebody say no. Please.
It's not nice to fib.
Huh?
It's not nice to fib.
Go ahead and lie. Has it infected you?
No.
Oh. Well, at least you had the courage to say it. Well, look at verse 9. Except the Lord of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant. We should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah. That there is still a shred of people who are still yet innocent. The innocents. There's still a small amount that have not, isn't that how he went into Sodom and into Gomorrah? And he said, if there be but 50 people, if there be but 40 people, if there be but 30 people, remember? And we get the term Jew them down from that, 20 people, if there be but 10 people. But they couldn't even find 10 people. But there was just Lot, there was Lot and his 2 daughters, and even the wife, she was shocked, But there was, and there is, and still yet remains the innocent ones that have not been infected, have gotten over. When people leave a King James only preaching church. Now I remember I heard this over at the big church. Do they go to another King James only church? As a general rule. Yea or nay? Well, the prognosis, the decision, what was stated was when they leave, they end up going to a non-King James. In other words, just another thing slips off. Just another thing, and another, and another. Until they finally forsake the Word of God. And they cash it in for an NIV. The innocent, there's going to be a group of people that will stand by the stuff. And because of that, the mighty hand of judgment has not come down, right? Has not come down on America. Has not come down on the church. I see there's some positive things here. There's always been a remnant. How many make up the church? Christ called it. Well, how many? A 3-letter word starts with F. Are there few that be saved? It's a little flock. There's just few. It's a little remnant. God always has left a remnant in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. The innocent. Now, look at verses 10 through 15. So these people are still going to church. They're still going through the motions of things. Hear the word of the Lord, ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of your God, ye people of Gomorrah. By the way, what did he call Sodom and Gomorrah? Revelation. I think it's Sodom and Gomorrah. I think. No, I think he calls it Jerusalem. Where our Lord was, he says where our Lord was crucified.
Sodom and Egypt.
Oh, yes, you're right. It's not Sodom and Gomorrah. It's Sodom and Egypt. You are right. Sodom and Egypt. But the point is made. So to say it's literally that, he could be in reference to calling Judah and Jerusalem that. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me? They're still sacrificing, saith the Lord. I am full of your burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts. And I delight not in the blood of bullocks or of lambs or of he-goats. When ye come to appear before me, they were still coming to church. Who hath required this at your hand to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. There's an I word, we're not using it. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies. I cannot away with. It is iniquity, even the solemn meetings, your new moons, Your appointed feast my soul hateth. They are a trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. And when ye spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you. Yea, when ye make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood. So my next I word for this fourth one, there's the iniquity of the people, the infection that it causes to people. Yet there's an innocent group that keeps the mighty hand of God from destroying people, this nation. But those that were still worshiping, the bulk of them, is the insincerity. Insincerity. They were insincere. They kept coming just to keep, they kept coming, and it's the kind of a church where the older folk keep coming because why? They know it's the right thing to do. That's about as far as it goes. And they go because mother and father wants them to go. In their heart is not in it. They're not doing it because they want to do it. They do it because they have to do it. Insincerity. It's kind of like instead of going to church on Sunday because of the 1960 or whatever that thing took place. When can they go to church? Instead of going to church on Sunday morning.
Right.
When do they go to church? Saturday when?
Evening.
And then what do they do after they go to church on Saturday evening?
Go downtown.
And they have a steak and a show. I lived among them. Right? I didn't grow up among them, but I experienced watching this. They didn't go to church on Sunday anymore because of the Pope. I don't know, what do they call that thing?
Ecumenical Council.
Is that what that is? The Council of 1960 or whatever, they end laden, and don't worry, you don't have to go to church on Sunday. You can sleep in on Sunday, folks, and you're going to get it in on Saturday night. And as soon as you're done, you get to go a little bit of Budapest on the west side, have yourself a nice steak dinner, and take in a show. Because their heart is really not in it. Their heart is really not in it. The insincerity of it all. They do some other thing, yet they're still sort of worshiping. All right, now, our next one, our fifth one, is the instruction. He gives instruction in how to cure this. Wash you, make you clean, put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes, cease to do evil. He's instructing them. He's basically saying, stop it. Yeah, you got two of them falling asleep, and those are the two that were really, really sick, two of them. Yeah, he already sagged out. They are ill, yes. Learn to do well. Seek judgment. Relieve the oppressed. Judge the fatherless, plead for the widow. He's instructing them of what not to do and instructing them in what to do, what not to do, and what to do. He's instructing them. I have in verse 18, I have the illumination, the invitation, and the illustration. Who knows, maybe that's what I preached 15 years ago. Come now, let us reason together, saith the Lord. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If you be willing and obedient, this is what you'll have. Will be your reward. You shall eat the good of the land. You'll have a reward. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. So he gives instruction of what not to do and what to do. In the grace of God, because they will now have a changed heart, in verse 18, as a result. We preach that for salvation. And willing and obedient, you will enjoy the fruit of the land. So, this is not all negative, folks. As when you normally think of Isaiah as being a very negative book. It isn't. There is instruction that is given. The day I preached that, The day I preached it, this person, there are two people involved. They can't, you know what whispering is. I don't mean being a whisperer, but to be able to whisper. To be able to, give me something to whisper. Something that's logical.
It's not nice to say.
I wonder when that guy's going to finish preaching. I'll say it a little louder, everybody. I wonder when that guy's going to finish preaching.
Yeah.
But these people couldn't, I don't know, there are people who don't know how to whisper. Ever meet somebody like that? I'm not talking about children, I'm talking about adults. They don't know, have you ever known people that cannot whisper? I wonder when he's going to be finished preaching. I mean, they just said it out loud like that. It wasn't rude like that. I wonder when he's going to finish being preaching. And then the other one said to him, yeah, I don't know when he's going to be finished. I mean, he just said it out loud as loud as it gets. And you know what, I thought, you know what, maybe they're unable to whisper. They don't have the ability to do that. You wouldn't think that they would. But, you know, when you whisper, do you use your vocal cords?
No.
Yeah, who said that? You don't use your vocal cords when you whisper. But these people were unable to whisper. They had to use their vocal cords. I don't know if they didn't know that. I don't know. I wonder when he's going to be done preaching. So Sunday school, that was at Sunday school. Sunday preaching, I preached Isaiah 1:18. I gave an invitation. This guy came forward. He was running, weeping, crying. I mean, it was, I had to get my hanky out.
Yikes.
Yikes. And do a yikes. Yeah, I had to do a yikes. And he got saved. They were rejoicing. They left the church rejoicing. Two men in the church came up to me after service. And they both said, independently, they said, oh, am I glad I didn't say anything. They were both going to ask those people right after Sunday school, before I preached, to never come back to the church again. And they both said to me, boy, am I glad I didn't do that. We need to be careful not to make a boo-boo.
Long suffering.
Long suffering. Thank you. And by the way, everybody here knows those two men.
Not me.
You're probably the only one that doesn't.
I'm always in the dark.
The instruction that it happened, but this guy had gotten saved. And I only preached that one verse, Isaiah 1:18, as a sermon, one time only. And both of these people said, I am so glad I didn't say anything, because I was going to tell that guy never to ever set foot in the door ever again. The instruction. Now, I'm waiting for a certain I word to happen in a political arena. The indictment. That's our next one.
They're coming up.
It's coming up?
A whole bunch of them.
A whole bunch of them?
Yeah.
On both sides of the aisle? I don't
They
know.
better.
Huh?
Yeah.
You think on both sides?
Equal opportunity indicter.
Equal opportunity indicter. Now, when you indict somebody, what is it? Is it the charges that are brought forward? The indictment states the charges? Is that what an indictment does? Is when we say in the indictment, it is the formal charging of the crimes, and they list the specific crimes. I think that's what the indictment is when you stand before a judge, the specific crimes are given. So coming up here in verse 21 are the specific crimes. The indictment is given. He gives instructions on how to overcome this. And the indictment now is given. How is the faithful city become an harlot? All right, what's the first crime? It is a harlot. It was full of judgment, righteousness lodged in it. But now murderers, you're a murderer. You're indicted on murder. Thy silver's become dross. There's no value to it anymore. Thy wine mixed with water. I would assume they put their thumb on the scale. They watered the whiskey down. They watered the wine down. The princes are rebellious. All right, you're rebellion. The companion of thieves. The thieves. Everyone loveth gifts. What do you call loving a gift? A bribery. Bribery. You're guilty of bribery and following after rewards. All right, money laundering and bribes. They judge not the fatherless, neither doth the cause of the widow come unto them. Therefore saith the Lord of hosts, the mighty one of Israel, I will ease me of mine adversaries and avenge me of my enemies. So the indictment comes down. This is the crime. And you know, when you have these statutes, the crime is given, and let's say you're found guilty. The judge can't invent some punishment. Is the punishment already given in the statute? I'm pretty sure the judgment's already given in the statute. And the way the judge now has to make a judgment, because there's a minimum and a maximum. This is the minimum sentence for these crimes, and this is the maximum for these crimes. He can't go below the minimum. He can't go above the maximum. And so the judge, I guess, in saying judge, he oversaw the proceedings. But then what is his judgment? His judgment on the plea of the prosecutor and the defense has to make a judgment as to what punishment to give for this crime. Was that pretty accurate? I think that's pretty accurate. The indictment is given. All right? We're going to, and he said, we're going to punish these people. All right? And now our next one, verses 25 through 27. And I call this next one the infliction. When you go to the doctor, do you hope to find a cure? No. You don't? Well, I hope to find a cure. I go to the doctor. I got to be pretty desperate to go to the doctor. But I hope to find a cure. And sometimes is the cure, is it for a child, it may not be pleasant. Right? It might come in the form of a what? A needle. An inarculator. And you know what you're going to feel? What's the doctor going to, you're going to feel a little what? It starts with P. Slight pinch. You're just going to feel a little pinch. The needle's about that long. Yeah, the needle's this long. The syringe is that long. You're going to feel a slight pinch. It's kind of like when we're raptured out of here before you're going to be in the presence of the Lord, and you're going down the street in your bicycle, and there's a Mack truck coming down Broadway, and just before the impact, the angel says, now you're just going to feel a slight pinch. But boom, immediately after that happens, the slight pinch, where do you find yourself? In glory, right? You feel the slight pinch. But you're going to feel the slight pinch. So the infliction, it comes a time to inflict some pain to do the cure. And so infliction doesn't necessarily have to be negative. And when we think of Isaiah, we think of only negative things. When really the book isn't all that negative. Look at verses 25 through 27. And I will turn my hand upon thee. It's kind of like, I'm going to give you a good spanking, and purely purge away the dross and take away all thy tin. And I will restore thy judges as at the first. All right, I'm going to turn my hand upon thee. I'm going to restore your judges as at the first. Is that positive? That's positive. And the counselor as at the beginning. Afterward thou shalt be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. Zion shall be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness. Does that sound positive? And those are positive things. You're going to be restored as a result of the infliction that I eased me of my adversaries, avenged me of enemies. I'm getting rid of them, and I'm going to purge away the dross. We're going to remove the sin and the things that cause all this problem. We're going to remove them. There's a general purging of the evil. Yeah, I don't know what causes the flu. They say it comes from ducks or geese or birds, and that the strain changes every year, so you got to go get this flu shot every year. Now they say they missed it a little bit this year. Well, I didn't go. I just missed the whole shot. I haven't had one. I've never had one of them flu shots. Never once. And I think I've had the flu so many times I can't get the flu anymore. Yeah, hopefully this week won't be the week I get it. Ever had the flu so bad you want to die? You hope that this is it. Lord, take me today. Take me today. I've had it like that. But in the end, it probably did us good to have it like that. Right? The infliction. It's good to have infliction. It corrects us and gets us back going the right way. But there is a segment that will not turn. That's our last point, verses 28 through 31 there. There are those that are incurable. They are incurable. Listen, not everybody's going to heaven. And the destruction of the transgressors and of the sinners shall be together. And they that forsake the Lord shall be consumed, for they shall be ashamed of the oaks which they have desired. I would assume they were bowing down to them. And ye shall be confounded for the gardens that ye have chosen. They had a nice garden for the Virgin Mary. For ye shall be as an oak whose leaf fadeth, as a garden that hath no water. And the strong shall be as tow, and the maker of it as a spark, and they shall both burn together, and none shall quench them. There are those that are incurable, and judgment day is against them. What is TOW? It's not Kelly's Towing. What's on the west side? Who tows cars on the west side? Anybody know what tow is? Yes. It is, okay, the burned off part of the wick. That's a pretty good description. All right, when you're done burning the candle at my house, you have these high quality German candles. The candle comes up, the wax, there's no residue, and you got this little tiny black thing left, let's call it that, of the wick. Is there any strength to it? Does it crumble immediately? If you touch it, the toe, and what's else in the verse? A toe. So let's give it a little bit of strength, just a little bit. And a spark. It takes no more than a spark to sever it. A spark, not even a flame. A spark is something that to keep it together, you have to try. It takes effort to keep it together from falling apart. And the least bit of a spark destroys it. All right, the toe and the maker of it as a spark, and they will burn together. In other words, that they're doomed, they're damned, and they are, what was my last point? They are incurable. They will not receive the message. They will not turn. I hope it was a blessing tonight that we learned something from Isaiah chapter 1, showing that this book is not altogether negative. It is a correcting book, and it can turn people that have drifted away, even if it be but a little ways or a whole lot of way, but we need to get drawn back. The iniquity, the infection, the innocence. And we can go over these 8 points again. Maybe you can invent some others out of there, but we try to go off of these paragraph markings. You see the flow of that chapter. that flow. And he does give instruction on how to, and encouragement on how to come back to the Lord, shake hands before leaving.